Hey everybody, Shar here, and welcome to the Blonde and Strong podcast. This is a podcast of strength and empowerment, with each episode dedicated to helping our listeners improve their health, well-being, to learn, grow, and unlock their strength from the inside out. I felt called to create this podcast to give a platform to inspirational guests to share their knowledge, experience, strength, and hope in order to empower others, to prove it's possible not only to survive, but to thrive. So this is done through open, honest, unfiltered conversations, a safe space for people to be raw and powerful through their vulnerability without shame or judgment, where no topic is off limits as long as it has the intention of empowering our listeners. Our growth is our own responsibility. No one can do the work for us, but I truly believe that we're stronger together. So sit back, relax. We're about to dive in deep, so come dive in deep with us. Thank you for taking the time to listen. So today on the podcast, we are honored and privileged to have with us Nick Dunn, who is an ex-paratrooper and author of Surviving Hell. So welcome, Nick.
Thank you for having me on your show, Shar.
No, thank you for being on. I've been so excited about this interview. Like, I've actually been nervous. I've actually been nervous because you have an incredible story and I wanted to do it justice. I wanted to do you justice, really. So I just want to thank you for being willing to come on and talk with us today. Just to kind of start everything off, I want to do with you what I do with everybody, and we do a quick fire round of this or that.
No problem.
Just so that everyone can kind of get to know you a little bit better before we start into like the juicy stuff, okay?
No problem.
Right, ready? Okay.
Yeah.
Dogs or cats?
Cats.
Phone call or text?
Phone call.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Connection or isolation?
Both.
Bath or shower?
Bath.
Like, do you prefer IQ, like actual intelligence, or emotional intelligence?
Emotional intelligence.
Love or money?
Love.
Depth or width?
Width.
Would you rather be right or happy?
Happy.
Oh, yay. Well, thank you for playing. Great answer. For people that don't know, Nick wrote a book called Surviving Hell, which I know for you just listening on audio, you won't be able to see it, but I have a signed copy of it here. I have read it. It is incredible. It's an unbelievable story. As I read the story, knowing it's a true story and it's your story, I was always very mindful of that. But as I read it, I almost felt like I was reading a fiction book, like something that...
You just basically read a book and you think, I know it's a real life story, but how on earth could that have happened in a real life situation? It's too good to be true.
But then at the same time, it's so ridiculous and so crazy what happens. No one could make it up.
You couldn't make it up. When people say you could write that, I literally have.
Yeah, that's what it's like. So reading the book, I mean, it was great because I got a good feel of who you were. So like, actually, when we've sat down to talk, I actually felt like I kind of knew you already. So I got a really good feel for who you were. It's an incredible story. For those that have seen it on the news from years ago, Nick was one of the Chennai Six who spent over 4 years stuck in India, either in Indian prisons or on bail and unable to leave the country. After being falsely accused and not even charged for years after being there, right?
Well, yeah. Basically, it was just a massive political, legal nightmare. It should
So,
never have happened, but it unfortunately did.
so looking back, obviously, just for the listeners to kind of talk people through, because not everyone will be familiar with your story, even though it
Oh, yeah,
was
yeah.
on the national press, like it was in the national news. So I think a lot of people will be. But for those who aren't, so you are an ex-paratrooper and you were in the one para regiment, right? Which for those
Yeah, I
who
was.
don't know the difference between the different actual regiments, the one para regiment is the one that supports the special forces. So
That's
it, right. So you went from being a paratrooper, coming out of the army and going into security and close protection, right?
Yes, yes. I left the army, and then I pursued private security, whether it be on land, say like in Afghanistan or Iraq, or maritime, which is protecting client vessels in the high-risk area, preventing the crew and cargo to be hijacked by Somali pirates. So that was what I was doing, and I was enjoying it, going to different countries around the world, meeting some fantastic crew from different nationalities, and I did it. I was doing it because I've always been in a kind of role where I'm protecting of sorts, and I felt this was something that I enjoyed doing. And 2013, we were ceased operations and were off the coast of India, and we were awaiting fuel and provisions. And we kind of went to sleep on the 11th of October 2013, and then woke up early in the morning, being told we've now been boarded by the Coast Guard at gunpoint, and we are being escorted to the port of Tuticorin for inquiry of some sort. And we were just told to just keep out of the way. If you need to be spoken to, we'll call for you, but there's no point having too many people milling around. It's best to just keep out of the way and let the higher authorities that on the ship, like the captain and the tactical deployment officer who's in charge of all the security, deal with the Coast Guard and the police and different organisations that were awaiting us at the port. So we kind of really kept in the dark for a few days, and it was a sight to be seen when entering that port, because we had such a massive welcome committee. Must have been over 50 people, the media, and I'm thinking, this is quite strange. But you don't think of anything else. You just, oh, well, it's India, isn't it? They're quite inquisitive kind of people. And I've seen that on the vessels. When you're going up the coast of India, you'll see fishing dhows going to these big vessels and just want to look at them. And, you know, they're just inquisitive. They're not posing any threat or anything like that. So we didn't actually think of anything. And then obviously as the days go by, more questioning and different organisations leaving. You've got the local police organisation called Q Branch. And they kind of just were not happy at all these other organisations going, well, they've showed us the weapons, they've showed us the paperwork to go with them. Well, we don't see a problem here. So the local guys didn't like that, because they were now feeling that they were looking at like a bunch of idiots. So they, in their wisdom, just gone, we've found weapons, they are illegal, we're going to put you in prison. And they got away with it. They literally just took their own law and just went, boom, enough of that. We're going to make these people suffer. We're going to make an example out of these people. We're going to make them suffer tenfold for a crime they've not committed, but we're going to put foisted charges on these people. We're going to lie to just cause absolute misery. And they did that. And they got away with it. And you start to think, what on earth is going on? And then they threw us in prison. And your whole world just crumbles away. 1 minute you're doing your job, protecting even Indian crew. And I've done that on some of the ships that I worked on. To now being portrayed as a terrorist, that you may have been up to no good. You are selling weapons. And having stuff wrote about you in a negative way in their media, and your family back in the UK are seeing these clippings online, and your family are ringing you saying, I'm reading some awful stuff about you online. Is this true? And I'm on the phone to my dad, and my dad's asking me, am I selling weapons? And I'm like, what on earth are these idiots saying to the media? I've now got to explain my actions to my own dad. And I turned around and I said, Dad, I'm protecting ship and cargo from Somali pirates. I'm not selling weapons. And I'm certainly not going to do a Mumbai-style attack on a nuclear power plant, as they're portrayed in their media as what we potentially could have been doing. And that's quite horrible to having to do.
I mean, I can't even imagine. I think it's really important, like, for people to understand, like, first of all, everything that they were trying to say that you had done that was illegal, like potentially being in Indian waters or having illegal weaponry on board, or all these different things that they were trying to actually accuse you of and charge you of, were completely false. All of the weapons were registered and within the legal parameters of use. Like, you were not, like, the navigation system had broken on the ship that you were on. You weren't even really in Indian waters, but there was also a typhoon happening at the same time. Like, so there was all these different things happening. Everything that they were accusing you of wasn't true. You'd been kept on the boat. Like, when they first came on the boat on the 12th of October, they kept you on the boat for like 5 days.
Yeah.
Whilst they were looking. So it wasn't even like they just came on, had a little look around and let you go and get on about your business. They held you there for 5 days on the boat, right?
Yeah. They held us. We couldn't really focus on any other things. It was just a massive milling of people bustling around. I remember in the room that I was sleeping in with the other guys, one of the Indian police just kind of came snooping into it, and kind of startled me, and I shouted, and they scarpered away. And I'm thinking, why are they snooping around this vessel? Why are these people doing it? You know, so.
And then you've got this massive people, like the press and things, waiting on the port, right? Yeah. All these people there also, and I can only imagine you're in a completely different country. Obviously, you know, it's a more deprived country. How everything works out there is completely different to what people are used to here in the UK. However, it became more and more apparent why there were all of those people there and why they were taking such an interest in you and the ship, like not just you personally, but the whole crew. So there was like 35 of you all together, and why they were trying to make an example out of you by really bringing, like throwing the book at you all. And that was because they'd had an incident the year previous, where someone had actually come in to Indian waters and killed 2 fishermen illegally, and
Yeah.
they quote unquote got away with it. So
Yes, basically.
in effect,
We were the fallout guys.
you were the fallout guys.
Yeah. Back in, I think it was January 2012, 2 Italian Marines working for the Italian government doing the same role, piracy with their navy, accidentally killed 2 Indian fishermen off the coast of Kerala. So I'm going through the situation in the southeast coast. For those who don't geographically know about India, Kerala is on the southwest coast, and that's different state, different incident. That's got no relevance into what's happening with us. The only similarity is they were doing anti-piracy role for their government. We were doing it as a private contractor. So if anything happens to them, they've got their government as a backup.
Yeah.
If anything goes wrong with us, we've got no one.
No one.
And I've just had a new load of books turn up there at the post. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Oh, that's amazing. That's perfect timing.
Perfect timing. I've just received a parcel of more books. But yeah, 4-year nightmare starting in October 2013.
So from there, they've taken all 35 of you, right? They've taken you to a bit of a holding prison while they're processing everything. And
Yeah.
there's a whole big mix of you. So there's 6 of you all together that are British, right? And then people
There
from
was 14 Estonian, 3 Ukrainian, and 10 or 12 Indians, if I recall. So the first prison we were taken to was built by British, and obviously when they realised there was British guys coming to their prison, they were laughing and joking and more or less saying the shoe's on the other foot now, because the part of India where I were still can't comprehend that Britain used to rule India. They are quite anti-British down there in Tamil Nadu, which makes our freedom struggle a little bit more tastier in their eyes, so they can hold that against us. But the first prison that we're in was awful. Good job we were only there for a couple of days. Unfortunately, the Indians, they stayed there. And I remember when we got bail in April, so we all went to prison in the October. The first ever prison in Palamcourty, the Indians stayed there, and then a couple of days later, 23 of the foreigners in their eyes went up to Puzzal in Chennai and did prison time there till we got bail in April 2014. So we spent our first Christmas and New Year in a prison, and one of the guys had his girlfriend and dad, and I think his brother came over. And I remember when we're in prison in the embassy, or given any letters from our families, etc. And I'm not too sure, but I believe he was kept to the side. And then obviously when he came back to the cell, it was, oh, I've been told my family's coming over. So leading up to Christmas, that happened to me. So I'm sat there on my own in the jailer's office with the embassy girls, beaming like a Cheshire cat, thinking, I'm getting a visit to come and see us before Christmas. And then my smile just was ripped away. And it wasn't my family was coming to see us. I was told some very upsetting news. And it was that my mum had suffered a double aneurysm 5 days before Christmas. And she's lying, fighting for her life in a hospital bed. I'm 5,000 miles away in an Indian prison with no charges, fighting for freedom. So I have two battles happening on two parts of the world, and I'm getting a letter off the embassy wrote by my sister, telling us that your mum's okay, not to be too worried. And it just feels like my whole world's just crumbled away. I feel helpless, useless. And then as I left to walk nearly a mile from the jailer's office back to our compound where we were staying in the prison, I kind of went into a shell, tunnel vision. I was battling the red mist. I didn't want the anger to take over. I remember Indians throwing stones at us, hurling abuse. And then I got back to the compound, and I saw one of the Brit guys, and I just broke down, and we went for a little walk in the compound. And I remember telling them that I can't do this. I can't do this. You know, my life's ruined. You know, all I could think of was my mum in prison, and prison during them 6 months was hard. It was hard on all. We had a few laughs. Being ex-military, we always laugh in the face of adversity. And we did have a few laughs where we would write jokes and draw little silly pictures and then throw it to the next cell, and they would respond and do the same. And we had a few fun times, because in a bad situation, you've got to try and see the light in some sort of way. And I remember we're all getting D&V, and that was horrible. It spread like wildfire. Everyone was ill. I remember going to the outside toilet, because we only used the cell toilet, well, a hole in the floor, if you want to be more precise, and that was our toilet. So we'd only use that once we're locked in the cell for the night. So we'd use the outside ones during the day. And I remember going to the toilet. I was like, I need to go to the toilet. And I remember walking, and I just puked up. And then obviously the rest happened the other way. So I'm stood there and I'm crying. And I'm crying for me mum. I'm like, I'm gonna die in this shithole. So I'm kind of crying and laughing at the same time. I've just shit myself. I've just been sick. I'm in an Indian prison. My mum's in a hospital bed. My head's a mess. And all I could think of was, am I gonna die in this place? And I was just like, what on earth is going on here? But we all recovered. Fortunately, but that was a weird thing to go through. It was just horrendous, because if anything major was to happen, you'd probably die in that prison. To be fair, it's not like our prison systems, whether you're in the UK or in the States where you've got some sort of medical care. They do not care in them prisons. You're just a number. Simple as that.
I mean, just hearing you talk, Nick, obviously I've read the book, you know, I love hearing you tell the story, because I feel like it gives you even more insight. Like I can actually like feel it, like how that helplessness, you know. I've never been to India. I have an Indian name. I like, you know, I meditate, I do yoga. I love it. But I have no desire to go to India, because I feel like even the nice places are quite grimy, just from like just a hygiene perspective. It's just a different culture. It's a different environment. It's one that I think I would struggle to be in. And that would not be in a prison. That would just be like as normal. So bearing in mind, you're there in a capacity, you're in a prison, being falsely accused of something. There's actually no reason for you to be there, but you have zero control over that situation. And not only are you dealing with the difficulties of the environment, because I can only imagine the conditions of a South Indian prison. It must have been absolutely disgusting. I'm presuming sleeping in squalor, definitely, on the floor with rats and God knows what else.
And obviously I've got my little rat incident.
Your little rat incident. Did you name it? Did you ever name the rat? I feel like you...
No, but it kind of... Wow.
Do you know what I envisaged when I was
being face to face with that? Shit myself.
Honestly, not for the first time.
Yeah, not for the first. The rats over there were the size of cats.
Oh God,
massive.
So not only are you dealing with the loss of your freedom, but the absolute travesty of the environment around you.
The heat, it was just unbearable at times.
You've got zero control over your own life in that moment. Then you get this horrific news about your mother. And I know in the book, it really comes across how close you are with your family, your sister, your mom, what a great support, that especially your sister was for you in your time out there. So to get that devastating news, really, when you've only been in there for not even a couple of months, you have no idea what's going on. That feeling of being powerless, having no control, being completely helpless, and in that kind of an environment where I'm sure you've had to build bonds with the men that were there going through a similar thing with you. But how did you cope mentally? I can only imagine your paratraining, that mindset of being ready for anything will have set you in good stead for that. But what did you have to do on a daily basis to be able to cope with everything that was being thrown at you from all different directions?
Well, yeah, my military training was definitely a massive mental help. I do believe if I didn't have that, I would have sulked and cried for Mammy in the corner. And I did that anyways at times when obviously things got a bit too much at times. I'm just a human. I've got emotions. I'm not a robot. But how I dealt with it mentally, I just had to make sure we all were more positive. There was quite a lot of negativity, and I don't blame those who were negative. I absolutely do not. But I always saw the light at the end of the tunnel, and I always tried my best to make sure as a group we were more positively mentally thinking than to give up hope. I never gave up hope. I always knew one day I would leave India and come home to my family. I just didn't know when. And if I had to go the full duration, I was mentally prepared for that. It would have taken me to the next levels and levels beyond in my mental boundaries. But you've got to adapt and overcome, and you've got to go beyond what you normally do in your everyday life. I was thrown in, like I say, in an Indian prison 5,000 miles away from home, a different way of life, a different culture. I had to deal with it. I had to mentally say to myself, this isn't going to be forever. There will be an end game. This is just the now. It's not going to be the future. And to try and explain it, it can be a little bit difficult. You had to live it with it. You had to be there, because when people said to me, Nick, I couldn't have done that, what you done, my response when people have ever said that to me is, you wouldn't know unless you had to deal with it. You do not know what you are mentally capable of doing till you are faced in a difficult situation. And I know I suffered. The other guys, they suffered. We all suffered. Some dealt with how they dealt with it in their way, and I dealt with it in how I dealt with it. I can't turn around and say, well, you should deal with it in a different way. If that's their way of dealing with their situation and their coping measurements, then fair enough. I hope it works for you. But I have to do what I've got to do for me to get from day one to the next. Simple as that. And I just had to just think of me family, not think of the bad things that happened with me mum, even though it was at times very difficult on not thinking that, because I'm helpless. I want to be at my mum's side, whether it be in hospital or back home. I want to be there. I don't want to be in an Indian prison. I want to be home with my family, but I can't because I'm stuck in an illegal nightmare, and I have to deal with my situation first. Because if I'm okay, my family's going to be okay. If I'm not okay, my family's not going to be okay.
Yeah.
If my sister reads my letters and reads my letters to me mum, and I'm not happy, I will be writing in my letters, I'm not happy, I'm struggling. My sister can't read that to my mum because my mum's then going to feel weaker mentally, and it's going to take longer for her recovery. So if I stay happy as best as I can and show my sister that I'm coping mentally and physically, my sister then can read these letters to me mum, and hopefully my mum can take some sort of positive attitude and help her recover.
Yeah, gives her a little bit of peace of mind. I mean, that's really beautiful, Nick. And I think there is that, like, where you were able to give them some hope, and with your words and your letters, and they were able to do the same for you. It was a real, like, passing of the torch back and forth, wasn't it? Like, so they could write to you, and that would uplift you and lift your spirits, and then you were able to do the same for them. And it's great that you had that family support there. And I understand what you're saying about, like, it's almost difficult to even put into words, and human beings are so adaptive. It's what makes us different to other animals, you know, like our ability to adapt and overcome is what makes us so successful as a species. But with everything that you went through, and like, bearing in mind you'd already been a paratrooper, you'd already been in numerous war zones, you'd already gone through horrific things in the war, like being blown up, seeing people die, like, this was, you know, you weren't a stranger to difficult environments, stressful situations. Were you surprised by your own ability, like, to even go up to another level of resilience and mental strength to be able to endure, like, what you went through?
Obviously at the time I wasn't thinking that way, but when I talk about it nowadays and reflect back, yeah, I definitely went through some mental challenges. I knocked down a few walls, and obviously I've got, like, me military mental level, and then I had to take it a lot higher to deal with what I went through, because military, it's physical, you've got to be robust, and there is a bit of mental strength in there, but a lot of it is physical. I was in a situation where it was just mental, and if you lose what's going on in your head, it will send you in a spiral of negativity.
And it sounds like you had to do that by taking every day as it came, like step by
Yeah,
step, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, with the pure uncertainty. Because bearing in mind, you were in prison when you first got there for 6 months, but you still
yeah,
had no idea
absolutely no
whether it
idea.
was going to go to trial, how long they were going to hold you there for, how long their legal process was going to take, whether someone from, you know, the UK government was going to be able to come in and assist you. So like you had all this uncertainty. You had no idea when any of it was really going to come to an end. So there must have
No,
been a
I
huge
had no idea. No idea. Every day was just sometimes Groundhog Day. But you couldn't go, well, we'll see what happens next week. Obviously, when we had dates going through the courts, then you can go, right, it's on like Donkey Kong next Wednesday, we've got a court date, etc. But other than that, it was just every day as it comes, every day a new challenge mentally, right? You can't go, well, that was yesterday, I'll do that today. No, that was yesterday. Let's put that aside. Let's deal with what today, because yesterday the vegetables might have been good. Today, they're absolutely disgusting. And you're like, how the hell are we supposed to feed our people? We're getting one meal a day as it is. How on earth are you supposed to cook 23 meals? Because that's what we did in the first prison. We'll put ourselves in little cooking teams. So we're cooking for 23 guys. And it's quite difficult. We're not chefs. So sometimes a lot of the food was, sometimes you just had to eat it because that's what you had to live on.
And what people may not realize is that in this Indian prison, you didn't have like a canteen or like a place that everyone went and sat down to eat. You had to go and cook for yourself using whatever ingredients they had in the kitchen that day.
Yeah. So we would get, say, a daily allowance of vegetables and bits of chicken, and we did eventually get to chicken thighs. But we never had chicken breasts. Obviously, why would they give a prisoner a lovely chicken breast? Unless you come to a British prison, of course. But we sometimes had to fight and take the vegetables down to the jail and say, "Are you taking the mick here? How on earth are we supposed to cook with these vegetables?" And then sometimes we would be telling our embassy, look, there was, days where we'll be fighting in the kitchen for a stove to cook on and a pot to cook our food in. Majority of the meals that we ate were stew. For the ingredients that we got, onions, tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, cabbage. I'm not a chef. I can't create a massive luxury meal out of that. We've got to do what we've got to do, and a stew seems to be the easiest way of bulking a meal to feed a large group of guys. So that's what we were doing for our time in the first prison. And we lost quite a substantial amount of weight. I lost 10 kilograms unhealthily. So we all looked a bit withdrawn when we got eventually bail in April. But it was a struggle at times. Like I say, that's how with the weight loss and just the environment, how we got D&V as well.
I mean, you're lucky. I would say, like, not lucky, but I suppose it is lucky that no one got sicker than what you did, because just being in that kind of environment must have been awful. But
obviously, in the second prison, someone did get a lot ill, and that would change the course of the outcome.
Well, let's fast forward then. So you've been in the first prison. Well, it was like your second prison, really, wasn't it? You've been in there for 6 months and you get bail. And
Yeah,
it's now April 2014, right? And
yeah,
you've been given bail and you actually spend the next 18 months
yeah.
on bail in Chennai, having
So,
to fend for yourself, basically.
so we spent a few months in bail, going to the police station twice a day, just to make sure that we weren't escaping. Not that we would, anyways. We didn't have a bloody passport. Uh, so yeah, I was living on charity money, family money, handouts from friends just to put a roof over my head. The company that I worked for put me up in a hotel for a short length of time, but they couldn't sustain it. Well, they could have, but they refused to sustain it. So we had to fend for ourselves, which became a financial burden on my family. I wasn't living in a luxurious place. I was living in a hostel. But when you live there every day for weeks and months and years, it mounts up. But so from April to July, we were signing bail. July, the case was quashed. I was technically a free man. And then we had to play the waiting game of 90 days. So another 3 months. So I'm a free man living in India, and I'm like, well, why is this happening? So we're speaking with the government saying, what's going on? Because the police have a 90-day window to appeal
Right.
the High Court's judgment at the Supreme Court in New Delhi, and we're just living each day as a, is it over yet? Is it over? Is it over? And then it's getting near the 90 days, and you're getting your stuff all packed, and you're going, we're going home. We're going home. And then on day 88, they go, bang, put the paperwork into the Supreme Court and appealed, and it gets accepted. And our life just goes, boom. So we're about to hit a milestone. If they hadn't put an appeal in from 90 days, that was it. It was over. Get me on a plane, get me back to the UK. 2 days. 2 days to spare. They put that paperwork in and destroyed 23 man's lives. It was absolutely disgusting. And it's something that I will never forget. And we have to now go through another legal challenge again. And it was just a nightmare. So you're constantly living in India, wondering when these court days in the Supreme Court are going to happen. And Supreme Court is a very busy court, so your case isn't going to get heard straight away. And eventually it got heard, I think, the following year or before Christmas. Can't remember now. It was just, every day was just an anxious wait. And then we're in court, obviously not personally, but we're legal teams in court, and you've got the prosecution. We became a split faction. So the non-British guys got their own lawyer, and we had our lawyer, and their lawyer was more of a senior lawyer than ours. So they stood up in court before. They said, well, the judge gave them a simple question. What was the vessel doing there? And if he just turned around and went, the vessel, Your Honour, was there because we needed fuel and provisions, the judge would have gone, cheers, mate, boom, ended. But he didn't. He turned around and went, I don't know why the vessel was there. I'm just here to get these guys free because they were just passengers. They had no involvement. They didn't know where what was happening. And the judge stopped listening to all that rambling on. He just cared about, I don't know why the vessel was there. So our lawyer didn't even, it was pointless getting to stand up, because the police are turning around saying they're up to no good. You don't even know why the vessel was there. And we're turning around saying, well, we're here for fuel and provisions. So the judge is going, who do I believe here?
Yeah.
I've got three different stories here. Who do I believe? Let's have a trial. And we're going, oh no.
Like, bearing in mind, this is all being done in a completely different language where you don't really even have interpreters there to help you know what's even being said. And
yeah, exactly.
You were on bail for all of that time, like for 18 months.
You can more or less say we're on country house arrest.
Yeah.
Basically, we were unable to leave the country, even though in their law, before they put the paperwork in Indian law, in that situation, you do not require to stay in that country. We showed this paperwork to our British government, and they turned around and gave us a simple answer in, we'll see what the police do if they appeal or not.
So I think it's important for listeners to understand, like, one of my biggest questions, which I know there's really no answer to because we'll never fully know the answer, but like, the British government, where were they throughout this whole time? But I think what it's important for people to know is that under British law, that they don't get involved until you've actually been tried and prosecuted, right? Until you've been found guilty.
Basically.
So until you've been found guilty, they cannot get involved under their law. And by the time you got to that point within your ordeal, it started in October 2013, and you were tried in January 2016. So you were already 2.5 years in.
Exactly. And so in January 2016, when we got convicted for 5 years, we'd already done 2 and a bit years. So if I had done my whole 5-year sentence, which I can be grateful I'm now home, because I'd still be serving my 5-year sentence at this current day.
That's crazy.
That would be over 7 years of my life gone. You know, it's crazy. But what I will say is, edit, stop recording now, edit, because my battery's going to go low, and I'm having a technical issue. Sorry.
That's all right.
So 2 minutes, I need to get my charger.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I can edit it all out. It's fine.
Yeah, no problem. I'll be 2 seconds.
That works out well. I'm just gonna let.
Yeah, no problem. So sorry about that.
No, don't be. My daughter was like, because she's gone out with my dog, and she's like, oh, I'll go out while you're recording your podcast, and she's like, are you done yet? I'm like, no, just come in and we'll edit that bit out.
Yeah, I'm just trying to have it balanced.
It's the joys of iMovie. We can actually like edit
Right,
stuff.
there we go. Is that a bit better? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Champion.
Yeah, it's absolutely
Got me
fine.
little battery pack.
I love it.
Right, so
Um,
where did I finish the game?
so
Because
like
my
you were
memory's...
just saying that actually, if you'd have been sentenced and
Yes, yes.
and you'd have been given the 5 years and you'd have had to serve that time out, you'd still be there now.
Yeah, so take the 2.5 years prior to me getting sentenced to 5 years. That basically wouldn't come off my sentence. So I'd still, in this crazy 2020 year we are going through, I'd still be serving my 5 years if we never won our appeal. That's madness. Imagine going through the whole, because India are really going through a lot of struggles during with this coronavirus. Imagine me being in a prison during this. Imagine how my family would be going on, knowing they couldn't come to see us. I don't even know if my embassy would have been allowed to come and see us. We would have plummeted mentally. Some, I don't even know if they would have been able to recover. They would have slipped in that down the rabbit hole too far, and I don't think they might have recovered. But I'm not saying other people are weak or strong. Just we all have different coping methods. I can't say I would have fared off any better. I could have. I am not Mr. Resilient. Definitely not. I went through my struggles and I've overcome them, but I still go through my little struggles today as what I've gone through in the past.
Yeah.
But I can't even begin to think about, imagine what 2020 would have been like for me being if I was still in a prison. To be honest, I can't turn around and say that I would have been a lot happier. Definitely. I think I would have really, really mentally struggled. I even went a day where I went a full month without even receiving a letter. And I broke down in front of my embassy staff because my sister, it was no fault of hers. I gave her a little bit of a telling off when I saw her, but she kind of didn't want to send a letter to me because she wanted to surprise me in prison. And it wasn't until the embassy came in to see me and I was nearly bubbling and crying in front of them because I received no letters of morale. And they basically said, Nick, sorry, we were told by your sister she's coming to see you and we didn't want to tell you anything. I said, don't ever do that to me again, because letters of communication in that situation is what gets me through day to day. And from not hearing anything from my family for nearly 1 month killed us mentally. So my sister kind of got a little bit of a telling off. However, when she brought a massive alcohol-laced chocolate cake in for me birthday, because I spent 3 birthdays and 3 Christmases in prison.
Oh, God.
So I celebrated my 30th birthday. So I was 27 when all this happened. I'm 34 now. And I spent my 28th birthday, I spent my 30th birthday, and I spent my 31st birthday all in a prison. And that was the only times I saw my family on my birthday. I saw my sister 3 times whilst I was in prison, and all on my birthday. And I saw my dad the once. And that was prior to me getting out in December, but sorry, in November, but like, it's mad when I think back at what could have happened differently. Imagine if we never won our appeal, now still in prison now. Imagine that. But I only think of it as something small because it's never happened, and it was never going to happen. I was confident in my legal team that we would have gotten out. Obviously, it unfortunately helped. We were kind of helped on by someone having ill health, and I hope he's making a full recovery from that. But I do believe we would have gotten out. Just we might have spent another Christmas in prison, but I was confident we would have gotten out.
So they'd sentenced you to the 5 years in January 2016, and by this time you'd already served another 18 months, 2 years of that.
Yeah.
Another 18 months of that 5-year sentence when one of the other men that were in the prison with you started to deteriorate, and they were getting sicker and sicker. And
yeah.
At that point, you knew that there was an appeal going on for your release.
And it was stuck on hold because they were very reluctant on making a decision. So our legal team created a red herring, and they focused on putting a case through the court to get the captain, who was unfortunately suffering with bone cancer, to go out into a private hospital to basically die and have his family come from the Ukraine. So we had to go through the courts to try and give him and his family them wishes. And it went through the lower court, passed to the high court, and it went up to Supreme Court. And we're in the high court waiting on a decision for nearly 1 year. So during the first year of our 5-year sentence in prison, we put our appeal paperwork in, and then it was all done and dusted on the November, and then we spent the Christmas and New Year in prison. And then as the months went by, we knew it was going to take time, but then the months went by, and I celebrated another birthday in March, and I needed that lift. Because when I was out of prison for that 18 months, I couldn't speak to my mum just willy-nilly. I had to use Skype, and it had to be when my sister finished work. So with the time difference, 4 hours, and then 4.5 hours, and then 5.5 hours when the times change, it's nearly 2 o'clock in the morning India time for me speaking with my family, and it was quite hard. So I was always on the phone and Skyping my dad. So my dad kind of stood up a bit, and me and my dad built a stronger bond and a father-son relationship, which I'm still having that today. But I've got my mum and my dad to equally share the love. But my dad I'd sometimes Skype and speak to him nearly 5 times a day, because I genuinely missed my dad and I missed my family, and it was more of a reassurance. And I was feeling down in the dumps. I was telling my sister, I was like, my dad's in his 70s. His health could deteriorate. We've been sentenced to 5 years, and as you can see, they are very reluctant on doing a decision here. They could carry on the way they're going for another four years. I need to see my dad. And I was writing this to my sister, and my sister went, I can't bring him. You know what he's like. My dad's not very PC, and he's in his 70s. The heat would have killed him. But he came out, and we built a homemade Flintstone-style gym in our compound as a way of mentally dealing with the day and just breaking out your day. So I'll be like reading books and doing stuff, going for a little run and doing fitness. And it was the day before me 31st birthday. It's early afternoon. I'm in the compound training in my Flintstone gym. And then I get told I've got a parcel, but I've got to go down to the jailer's office and sign for it. And I'm like, I'll get it at 4 o'clock. And he went, no, you've got to go and get it now. And I was like, I hate being disturbed when I'm training. And I put my top on and I'm strutting down to the jailers. And one of the Brit guys there, and he's like, massive parcel, you've got a massive parcel. And I was like, what have I told my sister not to send massive parcels, because it'll be via courier, and what they do is they try and get extra money off you for the courier, because we have like a prison account where we could buy essentials like toothpaste and biscuits, and we had a prison charity called Prisoners Abroad, which every so many months would put a bit of money into our account, and my family could give money to the MC and they can put money in. So I was really annoyed, because my sister sent a parcel previously and it cost us 4,000 rupees, nearly £40, just to get a parcel, which the items didn't come up to £40 in the parcel. I was absolutely raging, so I was just having another flashback. So I went into the jailer's office and I went, jailer, there's no bloody parcel here. And then my sister jumps out from behind the table, and I just freeze like that. I just freeze. And I think my tears freezed at the same time, because I was stuck. I couldn't move, and she came round and gave us a cuddle. And anyone who's been in India, especially obviously prison, they don't like the touchy-feely, male and female, they don't like it. So I was constantly getting tapped on the shoulder, and I was like, get off. I was thinking it was one of the other prison guards saying, you can't do that.
Cuddling, yeah.
Yeah. And then I literally got grabbed by the shoulders and spun round. Good job I didn't react in a bad way, because I literally got spun round and my dad was there. He was hiding behind the door. And honestly, my heart just broke. But my spirits went tenfold. I was feeling down in the dumps because we're stuck in limbo, and I've just been given that vital mental assistance. I was given hope. I was given happiness by seeing my family the day before my birthday, because they got to India early, and the embassy went, oh, by the way, we'll get you into prison today if you're not too tired. And they went, yeah, we'll go. So me dad and my sister got an extra visit to see us, because it's a long haul, 10-hour flight, and all the connections on top of that from the UK to India. It's a long journey. And you will be feeling a bit tired, but to feel tired and to see me, well, you're not going to go, oh, well, we'll see him on his birthday tomorrow. If you've got time to see me, you're going to go and come and see me, and that's what they've done, and it was truly amazing. So it was much needed rise in mental assistance that my dad came out with my sister for my birthday. And I
can only imagine what kind of impact that has just on your morale.
It raised my morale tenfold.
But how important was it? You know, like what we haven't even touched on is how much your family was doing back home to raise awareness, to get support, to raise money, to do whatever they could to try, the petitioning, being in contact with the local MPs, trying to speak to the Home Office, and really forward.
So much.
So
So
how
much.
important was it to you while you were out there? What kind of impact did it have to have that communication with them when you got the letters, when they came out to see you? Do you think you could have coped without all of that?
No. If I didn't have any of that, it would have took me to a whole new level. Absolute. It would either have made me or broke me. And I'm quite fortunate I had the support of my family, the support of many amazing people around the world. I was receiving letters from Canada, America, France, Australia, many places in the UK. And it was truly, truly amazing, because if it wasn't for my sister raising awareness, obviously other families did their part as well, but my sister, it wasn't for personal gain. She wanted to highlight the injustice that we are being served in, not just in our country, but around the world. She wanted everyone in the world to look at India and go, how wrong in what they're doing, especially when the UK and India, as former Prime Minister said when we were in India, the relationship between the UK and India is a blossoming relationship. And David Cameron said that, and we saw it on the news and read it in the newspapers. And I was thinking, a blossoming relationship, clearly,
Yeah.
while we're languishing in an Indian prison, it's clearly blossoming the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of history there, isn't there, and all of that.
Oh, definitely.
But your sister was it the Great Northern Run that she did?
Yeah, she did the Great North Run. Her and my brother and my sister's friend had a Facebook page at the time called Help Nick Home. So they would have that printed on their vests, and when they're running around, my sister would say in her letters, everyone was shouting, "Go Nick, go Nick, go Nick," because all they had was Nick wrote on their vests, "Go Nick," and they were raising awareness, and it was such, and it got basically noticed by the organizer of the Great North Run. And there was one time in prison, my sister was telling us that I'm just not doing it. I can't. I'm picking up little niggles and injuries, and I'm thinking about sacking it this year, and I don't think I'll be able to run. And in our prison, if you go on Google Maps and type in Central Prison Puzzle 1 and look at the actual prison, you'll be able to see where there's like the amphitheater, and there's like the compounds around it, and there's just a circle and a little apex. Well, we used to run around that, and a couple of guys kind of worked out how many meters it was, and I think it was like just under 400 meters all the way around. And then we would run around it, so I would do a couple of laps and get me training back up, because I've always did a bit of running, like when I was younger in school and all that. So running is okay for me. I should do it a bit more often nowadays, but my lifestyle is a bit different with the gym and all that. So we kind of worked it out, and I was kept giving my sister pep talks saying, "Don't give in. You've got to take these little niggles, and you've got to power on through." And I was giving my sister a pep talk as best I could, saying, "Right, I'll make it a deal. on the day of the Great North Run, I will run it in prison. I will work out 13.1 miles, or as close to is possible, which I think it was about 27 laps. So I had to run around 27 times. I'd only run to 15 and I was dead. So trying to run in 30-odd degree heat. So on the day of the on the day of the race, we unlocked our cell at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I had one of the guys I was running around with us, because he was good with his long distance, so he would help pace me. Because I've never done more than 15 laps, and I'm supposed to run 27. And I'm like, how on earth am I supposed to do that? I'm nearly dying it after 15 laps, and I've got to push through another physical and mental boundary.
Yeah, but you've passed P company, so you can do it.
Exactly. And I made my sister a promise, and I'm a man that only makes a promise if I know I can keep it. So the night before, went to the prison, got some oranges, cut them up. So do a couple of laps, quick water, chuck an orange in my face, power on through. So while my sister's asleep, getting ready, mentally ready for her 13.1 mile half marathon, I'm running around in prison around a track 27 times in 30 degree heat.
I bet they thought you were mad.
They did. On that day, the actual director of prisons came into prison and was walking around, and he came to us and he went, "Why is he running around?" And our guy says, "Oh, his sister back in the UK is running a half marathon in aid of us. He's wanting to return the favour by doing it in prison." So when my sister woke up to go and do the Great North Run, she had already known I had done it. Because obviously I used the prison phones to speak to my ex-girlfriend, who was Indian, who I met over there during my time between being locked up. She passed the message on to my sister saying he's run around 27 times, he's done it for you.
What a lovely thing to do now.
That spurred my sister on to do hers. So she went through the boundary in her own little mental health because she was having problems with her ankle, and she was like, "I'm not letting my brother down. My brother's just run a half marathon in 30 degree heat in an Indian prison, and I'm going to whinge on about a sore ankle doing a half marathon where there's amazing support, people egging you on, going, come on, chucking jelly babies in your face, giving you bottles of water. How can I let my brother down?" So I spurred her on, and she ran the marathon, and it was a tough one for her, but knowing that I'd done it in prison, it really spurred her on. And you've got to do little challenges in life, and she was ready to throw the towel in, and I was having none of it.
I mean, I love that story. I think for me, that's like one of the loveliest things. And I love the fact that even though you were going through all of this horrendous experience and you were stuck in India with all of this uncertainty and all these things going on, you actually found, love and were able to find some really beautiful moments in a really difficult situation. And I can only imagine that helped loads to help get you through. What you went through was a huge traumatic event. People who go through traumas, very often they can be something that happened in a split second and then they're over. and they have to then go away and deal with that. There's other people where those traumas are repetitive and they happen again and again and again, and they can have like longer lasting effects. What you went through was a traumatic experience that was kind of endured over quite a long period of time, where there was no real escape from that. And obviously you managed throughout that time to keep a quote unquote positive mindset where
Yeah.
I'm all for being optimistic and accepting your current situation exactly as it is, and having to live and be present in the moment. But I can only imagine that with everything that you were going through, there was a huge element of having to suppress and shove things down to like, I'm not going to think about that. I'm not going to deal with that right now. I need to just stay at this level and keep trying to push forward. So what has that impact been on you now that you've come home? Like, obviously you're not in that situation anymore, but I would have presumed that there is a level, there's an element of a whole grieving and healing process that has to happen once you come back.
Oh, most definitely. I was living in a different country, different way of life for 4 years. It's very busy, noisy, bustly country India is to the UK. And coming back home, I was faced with little challenges. How to use my washing machine. I remember putting my first ever load of washing machine, and I had to ring my brother on how to use the washing machine. I was like, how on earth do you use this again? To have a lovely hot bubble bath, to just, because I hadn't had a bath in 4 years, showers and stuff like that, and using a bucket whilst in prison at times. Getting to grips with things, taking the stuff that we take for granted every day, appreciate them things. Realizing that family time is a really special time in your life and you only get one chance of it. And I think we have come closer in my situation. I was aware that through my dad's previous marriage, he'd had a son and a daughter. And there was one time my sister was telling us that I was on the news and I appeared to look like my older brother. And she got in touch with my sister, and just because years have gone by, people would potentially forget. But my sister, she didn't forget. And she kind of said, just want to say, I saw your brother on TV and he looks like Gary. Your dad is James Dunn, isn't it? And she was like, yeah, you do know I'm your half sister. And my sister was like, yeah. So I've kind of reunited my extended family in my situation. And they were living under our noses in the same town as me. So for me, being in a shitty situation, I brought our family closer together. So I now say this a bit more now, and it doesn't matter how big or small the negative is, you'll always get a positive out of it. It may just be a little positive, but you've getting a positive from a negative, so you've got to be pretty impressed there. You've got to think, well, it's not all doom and gloom. So
that was one of my questions that I wanted to ask you, is, as horrific as the experience has been, how has it changed you for the better? And I mean, surely that's one of the biggest things, is that it's given you access to an even bigger loving family network, right?
Yeah. The first thing a few people said to us went, They may have taken your freedom away from your neck. No doubt you will probably have some mental effects. What you have gone through is quite traumatic on a mental scale anyways. But they couldn't get rid of your sense of humour, could they? I went, well, you either like me sense of humour or you don't, do you? You know, so they stripped me of everything, took me freedom away from me, which I think is the worst thing you can do to an innocent human being, is take their freedom away. But they could never take me pride, me spirit, and my sense of humour away. I laughed in the face of adversity. I made a promise to my family and myself. My hair may have kept on growing, but when I walked out that prison, my head was held high. Because I walked out that prison a free man, knowing that you may have beaten me down mentally, but you would never break me. I showed probably a high level of resilience, because I so many times wanted to chuck that towel in. I wanted to throw it in. I had endless times on the phone when I wasn't in prison, crying on the phone to my dad and my sister, saying, I can't do this. I can't do it. I want to come home. I even planned mentally my escape. You know, I put that in my book, because I did. I wanted to escape. I thought, I can't deal with this. I need to get back home. I need to be with me mum in her recovery process. I'm an innocent man. I shouldn't be here. Obviously, a bit harder to escape when I was in prison, but I showed the I'm not going to give in attitude. And my family in the UK did exactly the same. They never let me suffer in silence. They made as much noise in a diplomatic way as best as they could. They had many people in my town showing great spirit and a great community. We had the funeral of Jackie Charlton last week, and our town where he was born came out and showed amazing support, great community spirit, and they showed that for me. And I will be very great, and I will remain very grateful for the people of Ashington who supported me during my darkest hours and my darkest time, and all of our people around the world and in the UK. I'm very grateful on their support. I will never forget it. And I am a different person. I am not the same person as I was in 2013. I've gone through the mill. I've gone through a massive traumatic scale in how to overcome adversity, how to adapt to new way of life, new surroundings, coming home and still having the same bond with me mum, but not on speaking terms, because with me mum suffering a double aneurysm when I was in India, it's affected her speech massively. So for me, back in 2013, making that dreaded phone call saying I'm getting arrested, that was the last ever normal conversation I had with my mum, saying I'm getting arrested. I don't know when you'll next see or hear from me, but I love you. To come home and not be able to have that kind of conversation breaks my heart. It mentally hurts, and it will get easier. But what people don't realise is the nature of how it happened. I can't remember that voice. I can't remember hearing my mum speak how she used to be. And it hurts. And I have to deal with that. But every time I go and see my mum, a little face lights up. She would be in mid-conversations with either my sister, my auntie, our carers, I walk in, it's like the world stops. My focus is now on my son. So I've got to be happy, and I've got to be grateful she's still alive. You know.
Only imagine seeing, I can only, as a mother, I can only imagine that it was that drive and determination of her wanting to see you free again and have you home again that kept her going through her darkest.
Oh, definitely.
Well, I, everything that you've been through, Nick, it's it's got this whole 360-degree like element. You've got your sister, your mom, your dad, all your extended family, your community, the nation. Like all these people have been impacted by what you went through as well, and it's obviously made you a better man. It's given you a closer bond to your family, although it was a horrific experience that obviously I'm sorry you had to go through, and I'm sure you wouldn't wish on anybody. But
no,
how do you what do you see for yourself, for your life moving forward? Like, what is next for Nick Dunn?
That's a very, very good question, and I've always had my sister asking me that question as well, and she says you've got to be prepared because people are going to be wanting to know what's next in store.
I hate that question being asked of me, by the way. So
it's people can go like, oh well, I want this to happen. I'm going to strike. That's all.
How do you want? I'll tell you what. Here's a slightly different question.
Oh no, I'm willing to answer it. That's no problem. I'm a guy where you can ask me anything, I'll give you an answer.
I was gonna say, how do you want your life to feel? Never mind, like what's next. How do you want your life to feel moving forward?
I want to obviously be happy, personally. I want to know that I'm doing good in life. I'm not trying to preach or anything like that, but for those who've read my book or are interested in reading it, if you're going through any hardship and struggles in life, and if you can take even something so small from what I went through and implement it in their lives and their struggles, and if they can overcome it, then if I can help one person, that's great. Because we all go through challenges in our lives and struggles, and some people can't see the light at the end of the tunnel and give in. And unfortunately, certain people can go beyond that and take their own life. And it is quite upsetting when you hear people like that who've done that because they feel so helpless and lost and the help's not there. And I've always been a stubborn kind of guy. That's how I used to be, but now I will accept help. I do require help for my own struggles, but sometimes you've got to help yourself. People want things on a plate nowadays. Sometimes you've got to get up and go after your dreams. Sometimes you've got to have aspirations and like set realistic goals. If people can go through life in a happy state of mind and wake up one day and you may be having a shitty morning, put the kettle on, pour yourself a nice cuppa, put something positive on the telly. Don't put the news on where it's all doom and gloom, and try and just sit back and appreciate what you've got, appreciate life, because we only have one life. We're born, we die. It's what we do in between what defines us, whether people look at us and remember us and go, he or she was a good guy, good girl, or that person was a waste of oxygen. You know, you've got, I'm not on this planet to please everyone. As long as people who know me can think I'm a good person, that's all that matters to me. That's all that matters. And I think everyone should implement that into their life. We're not here to appease everyone. People thrive on that. And are they really happy within themselves? No, they're not. It's all materialistic nonsense. I think when you need to be happy within yourself, just keep a small group, and then you can all work off each other's strengths and weaknesses. If someone's having a shitty day, you know, grow some balls and ask them, are you feeling okay? Are you all right? People should talk if they've got problems. You know, we're all hurt. It's how we deal with it.
I think you're living proof of that concept that, you know, we may not be responsible for the traumas that happened to us. It may not have been anything that we did that caused it, but it is still our responsibility to do the work to heal ourselves and to repair. And, you know, when we're in dark times and we are struggling, it is still our responsibility to find a way out. You know, whether that is reaching out or finding something that gives us purpose in that moment, being grateful for something that just buys you another minute, you know, and sometimes we have to take things minute by minute or hour by hour or day by day.
Well, yeah, years ago I used to plan things in life, and now I know in a blink of an eye your life can change. 1 minute I was doing my job, next minute I was in an Indian prison. Yeah. So I take each day as it comes now. I still have goals. I still can look in a few days in advance and go, oh, I'm on my days off, I'm going to try and do this, or you know, I want to. That's realistic. But I live each day as it comes because it's just how my life is now. And I just, you know, sit back and sometimes just have a moment with myself and just go, you know what? Life's not too bad. It can have its horrible times, but you've got to think and look at the positive things, the good things, the good times. And you hear too many people being so negative and feel the world's against them. And I totally understand that. I've been the same. But you've got to think, you know what? It can always be worse.
Well, with that, it wasn't personal. Like what happened to you wasn't personal. It wasn't anyone that they got hold of. So it wasn't that the world was against you or that they were against you.
It could have happened to any other group of guys. It was a seizure exercise to make an example of us. It was going to happen. It just happened to us, and I was involved in it, unfortunately. I'm not bitter. Well, who wouldn't be angry? You've just lost 4 years of your life, but I'm taking that negative part of my life and hopefully trying to get positives out of it. If someone said to me 7 years ago, right, Nick, this is what's going to happen in your life, and you're going to get a book to tell what a lot of people don't know what happened, I would have laughed at them and said, are you stupid? That's not going to happen. But it did.
It did, because I've got it right here, and I've just read it.
And the thing is, like, I wasn't going to be doing a book. I had no plans of doing a book. I would have just done my prison time, came home, and this, that, and the other. But when people are writing to us in prison saying, Nick, are you writing your memoirs down? You know you've got a story to be telling, because we're not hearing a lot in the media. They're just going through the same thing to just raise awareness, really. No one knows what's really going on. And I just was like, and then I got back to the UK, and I met some fantastic people who also helped along with the campaign process with my sister. So negative, positive. I've gone through a negative part of my life, and I've met some fantastic people who I can now call as friends, and I wouldn't have ever came across these people if I didn't go through negative in my life. So, like I said to you earlier, doesn't matter how big or small this negative is, you'll always get a positive out of it if you look hard enough or have the patience enough. And I had 4 years of hell, and I'm getting positives now. So hopefully my next 4 years in my life are positive, and the years beyond that. But like, to do this book, it's been cathartic in a way. It's like getting things off my chest and letting people know who supported me, how I coped, how my family coped, what went on, because people are interested. That's why I've done it. People were stopping us when I came home and saying, how are you settling in, Nick, blah, blah. And I'm very approachable. I don't have a growl and snarl on my face to say, keep away, I don't want to talk. I'm very approachable guy, and if people want to mention about India, I've got no problems. I will give people the time of day. And, you know, that's just the kind of laid-back natured guy I am. But it's like closing a chapter and then starting a new one. And people would say, after saying, hi, Nick, blah, blah, Nick, have you ever thought about doing a book? And so many people had started doing that. And I just said to my sister, this is happening. How do you go about doing it? So we just did a bit of good old Google search. We wrote a bit of a lengthy synopsis, so to speak, up, and then we just started just putting feelers out. And people say, well, anyone can write a book. Yeah, anyone can write a book, but getting it published, so not an easy task. Let me tell you that. I was ready to even chuck the towel in again, and the amount of times I've been wanting to chuck the towel in my life, but then something inside me goes, no, Nick, keep going. I wish I could just have that attitude. Why have I got to go to some limit of my mental capacity or physical for something inside me to kick in to say, next level, Nick, keep going, don't give in.
That's where the growth happens.
Yeah, I'm like, some people just give in life. Me, I just don't know what being a quitter is. I'm not saying I'm special or anything like that, but it's just not in my nature to give in. Obviously, I'm being realistic here. I'm not going to try and do things that I physically can't do. And I'm a big believer. There's no such thing as can't. It's won't. But,
yeah,
you know.
But then there's playing to your strengths. You don't necessarily.
Exactly. I'm not going to turn around and say I can climb to the summit of Mount Everest, because what if I physically, medically are unable to do?
Mm-hmm.
And that's happened with a lot of people. The altitude they can't go no further.
Yeah.
And they've wasted 70 grand to climb on top of a mountain.
Oh my God, I know, it's so expensive. It's crazy.
You know, but I can think of better.
I know exactly what you mean, though. I know exactly what you mean.
You play at your strengths, and yeah, I got in touch with some guys. They came up to meet me. We had some food, drinks, shared a bit of my story, and I had them fixated. And they went, we like the sound of that. And it just spiraled out of control in a good way. And we started going through the whole, let's putting chapters together, let's talking through. And the guy had a lot of patience, because I'm going through old ground. A lot of it's upsetting.
Yeah.
And he's getting a lot of emotion from me when he's recording me, to then do his good writing and stuff, and helping get it all into chapters, because this is my story. He's just, I couldn't have done it without the team that I've got, but he's put it into chapters and all that, and the way the book starts to then go back, it's like a somewhat of a biography.
Yeah, it is like an autobiography. What I like about it, I'm so glad that you actually decided to go ahead with it and push through with it and try and find someone to publish it, because one, it's a really incredible and engaging story. It's one, like I said to you, it was like reading a fiction book. It wasn't like reading a true story, but then it was some parts of it were so crazy that you knew no one could make it up. But I love that it gives us a good background about who you are, where you came from, your background.
I'm just an ordinary guy. I'm nothing special.
Well, I mean, I think you are special, but going into your background about becoming a paratrooper, and really that mindset that you had that got you through that, and whilst you were on your tours of Afghanistan and Iraq, and then you were able to, we get to know you better, throughout that process, and then it gives you a better feel of what you were really going through when you were actually out in India. And I love the fact that throughout the entire book, your sister tells her point of view in it as well. So you actually get to go through the whole journey and experience with you, but then also catch snippets of what was happening at home with your family, and what you were feeling and what they were going through. And it does give you that kind of 360-degree view of what was happening. And I loved it because of that. It was great. And I'm
a few people have said that as well. With your sister's injection, it really brings the story more to light.
It adds another dimension.
It adds a bit more of a different insight thing. It's not just me rambling on about me, what happened to me. This just didn't affect me. This affected my family. So you're getting, like you refer to as the 360. And when people have been giving me feedback, and it's been great feedback, and I can now hand on my heart say I'm a little bit proud of doing this. It's not something that I ever imagined doing years ago, but like I say, when things happen in your life, you go down different paths, and some are for the better and some are for the even better. And I can say I'm really proud of what's happened, and at the end of the day, it's down to those who supported me. This is the book for them. They wanted to know what really happened because they were genuinely interested and really hard done by seeing a family being ripped apart, but brought together in unity in a bad situation. We all had the effects. It wasn't just me. My family suffered. You could say my sister suffered more than me on what she had to deal with back here in the UK. She had to deal with me being in India, dealing with the media, dealing with the government, dealing with me ill mum, putting her life on hold. So if anyone deserves a medal, it's my sister.
I mean, Lisa does sound like an incredibly strong woman, but it sounds to me like that's a family trait that comes all the way down from, your mom, your dad, right the way throughout. And, I can't thank you enough for coming on and speaking to me about your book and about your experiences. You are special. Like, what you've been through is very unique. And
well, it's never hopefully ever going to happen again, that's for sure.
Well, exactly that. And I actually can't wait to see what you do next in the future. I really believe that it's going to be bright for you. And I can only implore people to go and read your book. It's called Surviving Hell. We are giving away a free signed copy to a special guest, a special listener, sorry. We'll be running a competition, so check out my Instagram feed, the Blonde and Strong podcast Instagram feed for that. But I just want to thank you again for taking the time to speak to me. It's been incredible actually getting to meet you face to face, although it's still online with all this COVID lockdown nonsense, but it's been wonderful. So thank you so much.
No problem. During this lockdown, I know things is a lot less restricted now. But let's go back to the early days. It was annoying, really annoying, because one minute you're just getting on with your life, and next minute you're being told, batten down the hatches, basically. Don't leave your
flashbacks.
Well, I didn't really have flashbacks. I just thought, here we go again. At least I'm in a better situation this time. I can binge Netflix till my eyes bleed.
Yeah.
I can literally pick up a phone and ring my family, which I couldn't do when I was in prison. I can video call my family. My mum's came on leaps and bounds in 7 years. She doesn't require my sister to help her video call. She physically can do it herself. So that is something small, but after going through a double aneurysm and having to relearn everything, that is a massive, massive achievement for her. And it's morale for me as well. And it takes a little bit of strain off my sister as well. But dealing with the lockdown, yes, it was boredom. Obviously, I've worked throughout, so I've been very grateful for that. But a lot of people have suffered. Those with mental health, especially those with anxiety. So I've always, whether I've gone on Facebook Live, I've always kind of touched up on that and said, look, if anyone is and has been struggling in lockdown, please feel free to get in touch, and I will try my best to share what I went through in my lockdown and how I coped with what I had to go through, and hopefully share that with them, and hopefully they can implement it in their lockdown, and hopefully not see their home as a prison, as quite a few people have. I'm thinking you've got to appreciate what you have got to what I didn't have and how I coped. So I hope a message or something can come from this podcast to others who are struggling in their life. And I just want to say that, if you are struggling, don't be silent. Don't feel you're helpless and alone. There is people there to help, and I'm one of them. And my door is always open. I'm probably going to get potentially bombarded with messages now, but no. On a realistic note, never feel alone.
No.
We all go through struggles and hardship in our time. It's how we deal and cope with it. I'm not going to say for 1 second I'm the same person as I was in 2013. A couple of days ago, felt lower than ever. I had suicidal thoughts in my head. I wanted to throw that towel in. However, the towel keeps getting thrown back to me. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. Or a curse or God knows what. But I kind of had something to look forward to. I had me hair finally getting cut, the gym's reopening, and this podcast to do. So I had me little negative moments, but positivity on the back of it. Some need to see that positivity. They need to look in that negative to get the positivity out. Don't give in. Never give in life.
Well, I feel like that's the perfect note to end on, because you know, you have been a real inspiration, Nick, and that is the whole point of this podcast, is to really get inspirational guests on to help empower other people and help them find some hope in their situations. Because, like you said, we're not alone. We are stronger together. Reach out. Um, your DMs are open. Mine are open. I will put all of your Instagram and contact details on there in the description of the podcast.
No problem.
So people can connect with you that way. Um, Please, anyone listening, I do urge you to read the book. It was wonderful. I absolutely loved it. It is the perfect lockdown mindset book, because it gives you a real insight into whatever freedoms and liberties you think you're having taken away from you at the moment. They aren't anything. Just put your mask on and get on with your life. Like, because you could have actual real freedoms taken away from you and be locked up for 4.5 years. So, you know, on that note, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen. Nick, thank you so much for joining me. It's been such a pleasure having you. Please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share with anyone, and keep your eyes open on Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and everything else, where I'll be putting details about how to win your own signed copy of Surviving Hell. So until next time, take care.